Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and we're back today with another team composition video. We have today a fan favorite already, Dan Heng, Dan Heng, Danny Boy, however you like to call him. There are two main reasons why Dan Heng stands out compared to a lot of the other characters in Honkai Star Rail, even the Han class characters. The first reason is his very good amount of base speed. He has the third highest base speed in the entire game so far, with 110 base speed, with the only two characters higher than him is like Zealer and Tingyun, and he's also the second fastest Han class character. He also has cell speed buff, so that makes it pretty fast in the overall grand scheme of things, which is quite effective if you ask me, for a total free-to-play character that everyone can get access to. But I think what makes him stand out, Dan Heng, compared to a lot of the other characters in the game is his versatility. There are two types of characters that flourish generally in turn-based games. One are characters that are like best in class for their slot. For example, Han class, maybe you have Zealer, or maybe you have Yanqing, who's like best in slot in terms of damage dealing for single target damage. If not, you want to be very good in terms of versatility and fitting into a lot of teams. The second reason, and this brings me to my second reason of why Dan Heng is so good, is because his skill ability actually allows him to speed down the enemy target on a crit hit. And crit generally is quite accessible to a lot of characters in Honkai Star Rail, especially if you look at the Han class light cones that are available. A lot of them give a lot of crit rate already, and you just need to maybe pair it together with, for example, crit main stat and such, and you'll be very close to the 100% crit rate very early on, as long as you don't mind sacrificing a little bit of damage and so on. Of course, scaling well with crit and attack means he also scales very well into the late game in terms of damage and offering some kind of nihility-like support, because speed down is very valuable in the game and makes him a very solid boss controller as well, if you just wanted to maybe slow down the boss and prevent the boss from even doing any turns. With his further Eidolons, I think Eidolon 4, the speed down also increases from 15% to even 25%. Combine that together with his own self speed buff, the speed differential of him and like the enemy monster is going to be even greater than a lot of the other Han class characters. And I think that these are like two reasons what makes Dan Heng very strong, in my opinion as well. Now let's talk real quick about free-to-play team comp for him. The best character in terms of his pair, like a total free-to-play unit for him, will be a character like Natasha. Now a lot of you are thinking like other damage dealing characters will be a best pair, but the reason why Natasha is really good is because Dan Heng actually gets wind penetration when an ally casts a targeted skill on him, which means like Natasha has an E which gives him that single target heal, and not only that, it also like buffs his wind penetration for the next attack. This is good because you effectively change Natasha from just a pure defensive unit to become like a quote-unquote attack buffer for Dan Heng as well, to have that increased wind penetration. And once you have a pair like Natasha together with Dan Heng, you want to add in the third slot, for example an AoE DPS. The benefit of running a free-to-play character like Dan Heng is you really have quite a lot of free-to-play options to run as your AoE DPS. You could have Herta, for example. You can get her from the simulated universe, I believe, and you can get Qingque from, if I'm not wrong, the Memory of Chaos. You can get these two characters free to play from based on the event stages that's in the game, and of course everyone has access to Servile, which is like the pre-registration rewards. And these three characters, very good 3 DPSs on their own, and the best part is all three of them can work very well with Dan Heng. Qingque generally likes a lot of skill points, but this combination of Natasha as well as Dan Heng generally is skill point neutral or even positive, because if you think about it, Dan Heng only needs to use his skill once to slow the enemy and probably won't be spamming his skill and can normal attack to build charges for the rest of the team. So you have Natasha who's using her heal and Dan Heng using his normal attack in each round, and in the end it's net neutral in terms of skill point usage. Or in some rounds you don't even need to heal, you can actually get 2 skill points from both of them, feeding very nicely into your 3rd and 4th slot, whoever needs that skill point gauge as well. That's why it works really well with Qingque, who really likes skill points in terms of how her kit functions. Servile is also a pretty decent alternative. She doesn't need as much skill points in this team composition, but does very good damage as well. You could, if you are running, for example, Servile or Herta, I would highly advise you to run, for example, Asta in the last slot. She does like to drink quite a bit of skill points as well, because her ability, if you don't hit that many targets, will drink up quite a bit of skill points in order to function the best. And she plus Ting Quan might not work the best since both of them fight for a similar resource, but Herta as well as Serval work pretty well, especially with that team-wide attack buff benefiting both Dan Heng, your AoE DPS, as well as some sort of Herta herself as well. Really strong. They all benefit from speed, including Natasha. I think that this is a pretty solid team composition. And for those of you who maybe really like Dan Heng, you really like Ting Quan, and for those of you who want like a more defensive unit, or you really like to run Ting Quan, you could run Fire MC or March 7 in the last slot. March 7 can be either used to buff Dan Heng in terms of giving him that shield and also that wind penetration, maybe drawing some aggro to him, and if he's at very low life, then he's just a shield for him. So this is an extra option if you wanted to generate more wind pen for him and you don't want to just purely rely on Natasha's healing. This is an option. You can go Dan Heng, Natasha, you can run Ting Quan and either one of these two characters, and this will be a very solid free-to-play team. As you can see, it uses a lot of the free characters in the game, and this is a team composition that I myself I'll probably be running a variation of as well in terms of a pure free-to-play team as well. And now let's go to a bit more fun part. Let's add in a little bit more gacha. I'm sure some of us will be pulling on the banners and maybe getting lucky and pulling a couple of characters. And the first unit that I'm actually going to recommend changing will be to swap Natasha out and consider putting Ting Yun here. And the reason why Natasha and Ting Yun are interchangeable rather than the 4th slot is mainly because Natasha is here used for defensive option and also to give the wind pen to Dan Heng. Ting Yun does that as well and also gives him a much more offensive action. In a sense, if you run Ting Yun here, you can put higher priority on your defensive supports in your slot 4, so you're running like the top row. Whereas if you're running more of a Natasha here, you can choose to run the bottom row. Really depends on like what your other second team is going to look like, especially if you're going into the Memory of Chaos later stages as well, where you need 2 teams. So Dan Heng is really very flexible in terms of giving you very good options as a free-to-play player, and is a very solid like anchor pivot point to start off with, and that's why I highly recommend this character in a lot of my other videos, like this free-to-play video that I've done on the channel as well in terms of progression guide. And if you guys are finding value in this video so far, do like and subscribe for more of such future content. So now let's get into the pay to win team. It's really not really pay to win, especially if you've been playing for a while. You probably would have at least 1 or maybe 2 limited 5 stars or maybe even standard 5 stars as well. But I'll just put it here just because it requires a little bit of gacha, and not everyone is that lucky, right? Maybe you're like me, super unlucky as well. So okay, so Dan Heng in the 1st slot. Who is the best 2nd pair? I think that while we talked about a defensive position for number 2, the best options for him in terms of a slot number 2 will be an erudition DPS character, because there are much more options when you have 5 stars included. You can run a character, for example Jing Yuan, or you can run Himiko in the 2nd slot. Very strong 5-star damage dealers already, and with these two, they become more of like your hyper carry damage dealer, and Dan Heng can be like taking a little bit of a backseat to become more of like a slowing the enemy target and increasing your overall team's single target damage to really make up for their lack of a single target. Although of course if you build them really well, they do a lot of damage as well. You could run a character like Ting Yun in the 3rd slot who works really well with both of them, giving a lot of damage buffing and a lot of energy regeneration as well. And in the last slot, you definitely want to look for a little bit more defensive unit. I will recommend a character, for example like Natasha. For example, this team comp is like if you only have 1 5-star. Of course, if you are a bit more aggressive, you perhaps have a more 5 stars, you could opt for Bronya. I think out of all of the supports, Bronya is the best, works the best with Dan Heng, because Bronya gives crit damage buff, attack bars, as well as a single target action advance, which allows him to have his wind pen, and he generally has very high crit rate. To make use of his slow ability, he will capitalize very well on Bronya's like crit damage buffs with her ultimate as well. So I think that out of all characters in Honkai Star Rail, the best character to work with Dan Heng will be Bronya. It's like they really work like peanut butter and jelly, very well together. And of course, if you don't have the luck of like 2 5 stars, you could always run a 3-star erudition character, like one of these characters here, depending on which is your favorite. I don't really have a preference since all of their elements are different. The only thing that differentiates them is some of them might have more competition with other characters. For example, if you have Serval and you maybe are planning to pull for Kafka, you might have competing resources, as we talked about in the Kafka video already. But anyway, all 4 stars really work pretty well in terms of slot number 2 in terms of erudition class. So those are like some thoughts. You could have more complex team compositions where you start varying up the team composition a bit, especially when you add in unique characters, like maybe you could add in Gepard in the 4th slot instead. By running Gepard here, you actually open up your option to running Arlen in the second slot, even a character like Blade in the second slot if you wanted to. So this is like a Blade and Dan Heng kind of, I don't know whether you call it canon or whatever you want to call it. It could be interesting to see this team composition with Blade and Dan Heng as well. Opens up this team composition with one of the buffers here as well. I don't really like Esta with Dan Heng, mainly because she doesn't offer him that single target like buffing when he needs to have that wind penetration. But other than that, I think she's still a really solid character all around. She could be used on the other half in terms of the Memory of Chaos, so some things that I am considering as well. If you want more of such content, do click on any of these two videos right here. I'll be doing build guides as well once the game goes live, so do check back on the channel, and thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.